Let's dive into a story that's thousands of years old, but wow, does it feel modern. It's a tale about hitting the absolute highest of highs, crashing into the lowest of lows, and then finding your way back in a way you would never, ever expect.
So I want you to think about this for a second. What happens after the big win? After you land the dream job or finish the huge project, you'd expect parties, high fives, a victory lap, right? Well, for the hero of our story today, what came after his greatest triumph was the last thing anyone would have seen coming.
To really appreciate the view from the peak, we've got to start way down in the valley. Our story kicks off in a kingdom that is, to put it mildly, teetering on the edge of total collapse. And the crisis here was massive. This wasn't just some political disagreement. For starters, a 3-year drought had absolutely scorched the land. People were starving. At the very same time, the rulers, King Ahab and Queen Jezebel, were forcing the worship of a foreign god, Baal. And they weren't just encouraging it. Oh no. Jezebel was actively hunting down and executing the prophets of the Lord. It was a seriously dark and dangerous time.
And into this complete and total mess walks one man, the prophet Elijah. He doesn't show up with an army or a new political party. He shows up with a challenge. A dangerous, very public, all-or-nothing proposal that was going to force the entire nation to pick a side.
And this leads us to the main event, this spectacular showdown on a place called Mount Carmel. You can think of it like the ultimate reality TV competition, just, ancient style, with stakes that could not possibly have been higher.
I mean, just look at the odds here. It's totally lopsided. On one side, you have 450 prophets of Baal. They're loud, they're numerous, and they spend hours in this frantic, desperate ritual. And on the other side, just one guy, Elijah. The contest was pretty simple. Whichever god could answer with fire from the sky, that's the real god. The prophets of Baal went first. They shouted, they chanted, they even cut themselves. And for hours on end, nothing. Absolute silence.
Then it's Elijah's turn, and this is where you really get a sense of his confidence. He calmly rebuilds this old, forgotten altar. He lays out the sacrifice. And then he does something absolutely wild. He has people drench the entire thing with water. Not once, not twice, but 3 times, until there's a literal moat of water all around it. He makes an impossible task even more impossible. And then he just says a simple, quiet prayer. And bam! The response is immediate, overwhelming. Fire just falls from a clear sky. But it doesn't just burn the sacrifice. It consumes the wood, the stones of the altar, the dirt itself, and it even licks up every last drop of water in the trench. It was a complete, undeniable mic drop moment. The crowd, who'd been pretty hesitant up to this point, just erupts. They see this miracle, they fall on their faces, and they all start shouting this. The contest is over. The victory is total. Elijah then rallies the people, they deal with the false prophets, and to top it all off, that 3-year drought, it breaks with a massive rainstorm. It feels like the perfect ending. Or, so you'd think. Because this is where the story takes a sharp, shocking turn. This spectacular, public victory is immediately followed by a devastating, private collapse. You'd think King Ahab and Queen Jezebel would see fire fall from heaven and maybe, reconsider their life choices, right? Wrong. Ahab is wishy-washy, but Jezebel, she is furious. She doesn't repent. She doubles down. She sends a messenger straight to Elijah with a simple promise. By this time tomorrow, you'll be just as dead as the prophets you killed.
And this is where Elijah experiences what we could call a prophet's burnout. See, he expected that huge win to spark a national revival, to topple the whole corrupt system. But when the dust settled and nothing fundamentally changed, the hero who had just faced down 450 men suddenly felt like he'd accomplished nothing at all.
The man who stood alone on a mountain in front of a nation now runs for his life, alone in the desert. He sits down under a tree and literally prays for it all to be over. The great prophet, fresh off the victory of a lifetime, is completely broken, exhausted, and absolutely convinced that his life has been a failure.
But this isn't the end of his story. After an angel takes care of him, Elijah travels for 40 days and nights to another mountain, Horeb, the mountain of God. And what happens here is the complete opposite of what went down on Mount Carmel. Remember Carmel? That was a public spectacle. It was all about consuming fire, roaring crowds,
a decisive, powerful battle. It was God revealing himself through overwhelming, awesome force. Now look at Horeb. This is a private encounter. There are no crowds, just a single broken prophet. The goal here isn't a public battle, it's a quiet, personal renewal. This contrast is the entire heart of the story.
On the mountain, a powerful wind shatters the rocks, then an earthquake, then a fire. I mean, these are all the big, spectacular things you'd expect, right? The kind of stuff Elijah saw in Carmel. But the story makes it crystal clear. God wasn't in any of them. After all that noise, there came a still, small voice, a gentle whisper, and that is where God was.
And this quiet encounter wasn't just to make Elijah feel better. It was meant to give him a new direction, to pull him out of his despair by giving him a whole new purpose.
God gives Elijah 3 concrete, forward-looking jobs. And notice, none of them involve refighting the battle on Carmel or confronting Jezebel directly. The whole strategy has shifted. It's moved from spectacular confrontation to quiet, long-term influence. It's about building the future, not just winning the present. It's like he's being told to stop being the star player and start being the coach who finds and trains the next generation.
And then, God addresses Elijah's deepest fear, that profound sense of isolation that fuels so much burnout. Elijah had cried out, "I am the only one left," and God responds with this number, 7,000. He's basically saying, Elijah, you were never alone. You just couldn't see them from the middle of your own firestorm.
So Elijah leaves the mountain. He finds a man named Elijah plowing a field, and in this incredibly symbolic act, he throws his own cloak over Elisha's shoulders. He is passing the mantle. And this, right here, is the ultimate cure for his burnout. His purpose is no longer defined just by his own victories, but by empowering his successor. He finds renewal not in winning another battle, but in ensuring the work will continue long after he's gone.
Elijah's story seems to tell us that the most profound answers don't always come in the fire and the earthquake of our big achievements, but often in the quiet that follows. So the question for us is pretty simple. In the constant noise of our own lives, how do we learn to create enough space to actually hear that whisper? Because for us, that whisper might not be a divine voice, but it could be that quiet gut feeling that it's time for a change, or that one piece of crucial advice from a friend, or even just the simple recognition that our greatest impact might actually lie in lifting somebody else up.